alive in general. I would probably take away the right to vote for, um, maybe people that have no stake, no skin in the game. Because here's the thing, even the men. I look at a lot of men who are students, and they're 21 years old, and their parents are paying for their apartment, and they've never had a real job, and they're out there telling everybody this is the way the world has to be. Well, how do you know? If you don't own property and you don't know like how the trains run, because if you, let's say you even own your own home, you need to know a little bit about how the world works. You need to know about weather. You need to know about moisture. You need to know about, like basic things for how we have a human habitation. You know what I'm saying? Property developers uniquely understand these things. Taxes and insurance and code and how money is made. Like, they understand what makes the world go round. An 18-year-old that is renting an apartment and never had a real job and is basically their parents are paying for everything. They don't have a car. They really have no way of knowing how the world works. And they also have no skin in the game. Whoever wins the election, it doesn't really matter that much, actually, for them. So I would say that we have to really seriously consider reworking who is eligible to vote based on, who we would entrust that decision with, who we feel comfortable entrusting the decision of who should run our country with. And, what comes to mind is people with children, people that own property, people that are of a certain age, people that have had military service, people that speak English. How about that? I mean, there would be some requirements that'd be introduced.
Who would you appoint to your cabinet?
Oh, it wouldn't be anybody in politics. I think we need like a throw all the bastards out mentality. I think they're all corrupt. So nobody. I would probably solicit people from the country to run the government.
What's the first thing you would ask the guys in suits about?
Oh, aliens. Aliens, I would ask them about. JFK, but I think we basically know what happened there. I would ask them about all the spy stuff that goes on between us and the other countries. But to tell you the truth, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. Like, I actually don't believe there is some, like, really shocking hidden truth. Some people are waiting to discover that, like, we encountered aliens years ago. I don't think that's true. I think that what we see is what we get, basically. And it doesn't go much further beyond, what's in your imagination about what billionaires do,
Really?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of some things that you've said. You've kind of pointed to the fact that the nation of Israel, Jewish people, etc., like it's kind of like a cabal, and it's like very negative, and it's like about rebuilding the temple. Like there's a lot of stuff here. It's just like, do you not classify that as conspiratorial because there's just evidence?
Yeah, basically. I mean,
that sounds like a conspiracy to my Thanksgiving dinner,
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, what is a conspiracy? Conspiracy is when people work together for some, ulterior agenda or ulterior motive. And I think that happens in the world, but there's like a whole other category. I would say there's conspiracies that, like, powerful people work together for a hidden agenda. And then I think there's another category of conspiracy, which is that, like, reality isn't as it seems. There's conspiracies where there's no evidence for them, and they say that there's a fundamental deception about the nature of reality. So, like, aliens. That's, to me, a different category. To say that, like, when Jewish people talk about the Third Temple, they're doing that in the Israeli media. Government ministers talk openly about it. When you say that, like, humanity encountered extraterrestrial life and this has, like, implications for hidden technology and things like that, that's far-fetched. Or chemtrails and, nanotechnology. Like, things like that, to me, that's just a domain of kookery. That's just crazy talk, in my opinion.
That makes more sense. I have to interject this, because I should have asked about it. Do you think the Axis power should have won?
No, you know, I don't think that we should have won the war. But what I will say is it's a little more complicated than people realize because what inevitably happened after the Axis lost. The Axis loses, and now we're in a war with the Soviet Union. And what people ignore is that in the interwar period, and even before, you had two ideologies, which was not just fascism or National Socialism, but communism. And you also had two countries that upset the balance of power in Europe. Because that's really what the wars were about. It's that Germany became by far and away the biggest and most powerful industrial country after unification, which upset the concert of Europe established after the Napoleonic Wars. Some people know about this, but the same thing was happening in Russia. Russia, throughout the 1920s and 30s and 40s, was on a war footing. The reason they were starving Ukrainians is because they were requisitioning grain to finance industrialization. Why? To build amphibious tanks. Why did they need amphibious tanks? Because they wanted to invade England, which, of course, means they wanted to invade the rest of Europe. So, what people maybe don't realize is, yes, the Nazis built their war machine, and they had designs on, they wanted to control Russia, they wanted to control Eastern Europe, but the Soviet Union wanted to control Western Europe. So this was sort of an inevitable conflict. Now, was it the best idea for the United States to back the Soviet Union and for them to enslave half of Europe and to fight them for 50 years because they got the bomb in 1949? I think maybe the better outcome would have been to let them fight the Soviet Union. Wouldn't that have been let them fight each other to exhaustion? Would have that been maybe the better outcome? So, in terms of how it was handled, I think the biggest mistake of World War II is that we kicked out Hitler and we let in Stalin. We kicked out the Nazis and we brought in the Bolsheviks. I'm not sure the Bolsheviks were better than the Nazis. I mean, certainly they're as bad. They might have been worse. So, I would say now that was maybe the biggest miscalculation of the whole war.
Would you make Bitcoin the U.S. currency?
No. I believe in fiat money, generally.
Would you make it legal tender?
Probably not.
If you had to pick a national anthem for America, what song would you choose?
Well, I really like Battle of the Republic. That's probably like my favorite patriotic song. But the current national anthem, it's not a great song, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, it's ours, I know, but like, is it the best song ever? I don't think it's the best American anthem.
Nothing. Yays. Discography. I think that's what you said.
Yeah, maybe Nitrous, maybe something off Cock, I don't know.
What's a fear? What's a fear about the future that you rarely talk about publicly?
Well, I talk about all of it. I guess my biggest fear is that probably nuclear war would be my biggest fear. Is people really, that's so generic, but do people think about the fact that we have nuclear weapons pointed at each other at all times? We've been living in the nuclear age for 80 years, which in the grand scheme of things is not a long time. And there's a handful of countries that have them. And I think the odds that we get in a nuclear war, it's almost inevitable on a long enough timeline. And the question is just when, as we transition to a multipolar world order, countries like China build their arsenal, and countries like Russia rise up and push back on the American empire, the odds that we get a nuclear conflict are probably greater than ever before. In some ways. In some ways not, but in some ways it might be the greatest risk ever. So I'm really worried in the next 15, 20 years, there's going to be another nuclear close call, and I wonder if our leaders are going to have the wherewithal to prevent it.
What's the most important thing you want people to remember about you?
Well, in the end, everybody's going to be forgotten, I guess, eventually. But I just don't want people to remember me as the caricature that they create about me. I guess I just want, it's like anything, you want people to understand you, and I want people to understand that, everything that I did was for America. It was for Christianity. It wasn't for hatred of other groups or, whatever they say. It was not ideological hatred or grifting. it's out of a deep sense of, it's a longing for justice.
Yeah, Nick, I ask every guest at the end of the podcast, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? But I'll change it for you. If you could say a prayer for America, what would it look like?
I would pray for, I guess I would pray for the people, because I think about when Christ was going to his death on the cross. He didn't condemn everybody. He didn't say, this isn't fair. He didn't say, I'm innocent. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And that's how I feel about this country. I feel like the country is totally messed up. I think we have every right to be angry. Everybody has a right to be angry. Everybody has a right to be resentful about everything and everybody, about